All right, Scott. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We have a very
Absolutely.
interesting person today, a real leader in real estate. So I know we have so much to learn from you. We want to hear your story. Um, so Scott is the CEO of M&A DevCo. You guys are based in the Texas Triangle. And what I can see is that you guys have done some amazing projects. And we definitely want to learn about your story and what you guys are doing and what's working in this environment. So why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about yourself and yeah, your journey, your real estate journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, appreciate you having me on the podcast. I'm a little new to these things. I've done half a dozen of them or so before, but when we get on the topic of finance and economics and real estate, I can talk for hours on end. But our company specializes in finding opportunities that aren't necessarily listed on the MLS. We really search and get out there and knock on doors and try to find stuff. And the basic thesis behind what we do is that everybody needs a place to sleep. And so we focus on residential housing. And right now, multifamily is a little shaky, but there's some really good opportunities if you're in the right market. Residential housing can be a shaky market by market. But the benefit that we have is millions of people moved here in Texas during the pandemic. Corporate headquarters are moving here. We have the second largest amount of financial jobs outside of Wall Street. So Goldman Sachs is moving here. The New York Stock Exchange is moving here. Plus, you have companies like Toyota and Samsung and all these. We now actually have more Fortune 500 companies domiciled here versus New York, which was number one for a long time. So that ecosystem is just breeding people need a place to live, which is why we focus on the Texas Triangle.
Amazing. Yes. Yeah, I've heard. I mean, for several years, right? Texas just keeps growing. A lot of people just like living there, and they discover this amazing place where they can do business and to live. So
Yeah,
I think you're in the right
absolutely.
market. I definitely
Yeah.
have to go and visit you guys.
You need to come to Dallas and visit us.
Yes. So let me ask you, what is your journey? Why did you pick real estate?
From the time that I was a kid, I would build things and, I recall as a kid, I would build an entire little village and with, carve it out of a mountainside and roads and bridges and everything. And I've just always had a fascination for building stuff. And then, I took my first economics class in high school and got the entrepreneurial bug. And really all of my best friends' dads growing up were on the real estate side. They were either developers. And I recall in high school going over to my best friend's house, and his dad was a real estate developer, and he had picked up 30 acres of land in an area of our hometown and subdivided it into 30 lots for high-end luxury homes. And this was back in the 80s when $1 million home was actually a very, very nice home. And so these were all $1 million plus homes. And my friend says to his dad, how much did you make on that sale today? He said, I made $1 million. And that was it. I was like, I can make $1 million off of doing one transaction. And so I was hooked. So I studied economics and finance in college and then went on to become a commercial lender in Southern California. Grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area and then moved to Southern California. And I worked on the debt side of the real estate industry because I had affinity for numbers and loved finance. And so I was a debt broker. And so I had financed apartment complexes and daycare centers and car washes and every kind of retail product. And I did that for several years. And then I visited Texas for the first time in 99 and fell in love with it. And I was always a Dallas Cowboys fan. I was always a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader fan. I was a fan of the TV show. And so Dallas to me just rang true. And it just happened to be that it was the right place for me to raise a family and live. But it also, we are now in front of this massive wave of development and everybody is moving here. So there's a huge demand and it's a very business friendly environment. There's no state income tax. The state legislator, corrects laws that are very pro business. And so it attracts a lot of people. So we ended up in the right spot. So beyond that, I've kind of not to give you detail of every play by play for the last 25 years, but I've been the CEO of 5 different real estate development and construction companies. So our format has always been have real estate brokers go out and do site selection to find the sites, take the sites down for different types of clients, do build to suit leasebacks. So I did it for the restaurant industry and the retail industry in Southern California. We had a fund where we did it for the oil and gas industry, where my clients were companies like Baker Hughes, Halliburton, Schlumberger. And if they needed a 20-acre facility in Williston, North Dakota, my brokers would go out and find it. And then my architects and engineers would design the building. And then my construction team would actually physically build the building. And then we had a finance arm and a private equity fund that would actually pay for it and then lease the facility back to the oil and gas industry. So when we did that, we created a $250 million fund, deployed that capital over a few years, and then sold it for $350 million and made $100 million profit for our investors. And so that was in between 2010 and 2015. Fast forward a few years, we created another fund that we did for residential housing, where we deployed that across the U.S. Did that for a few years, and then took my exit package, and then moved on. And it just happened to be that about a year later, one of my friends took over KB Homes, and he called me up and said, I need to put 4,000 lots in North Texas in the next couple of years. I need you to get back into the lot business. And we kind of assumed with interest rates going up that it had kind of killed that industry. But sure enough, everybody refinanced at 2.5%. So nobody wanted to move out of their existing homes. And the home builders were buying rates down into the floors. So they were still moving inventory. And so they were running out of inventory. And so they still needed inventory. So I jumped back in the lot business. And now we've got 17 projects, 12 subdivisions, 5 multifamily projects. Our largest project is a $200 million high-rise multifamily 230-unit building. Our smallest project is a 96-lot subdivision in a nice community of North Texas, and that's what we specialize in doing, is finding these properties, doing the entitlement work, bringing the value up from raw farmland up to improved entitled value, and then we'll either physically build a subdivision and sell finished lots to the home builders. They may want to buy it from us prior to that, or we do what we're doing with our high rises. We're actually delivering multifamily product and putting a new capital stack together and delivering products for our investors. So I started in this when I was 18. I'm about to turn 56. So I've been doing it my entire career, doing it for over 30 years. And so even, I think I'm relatively smart, but you can get good at something if you try it for 30 years. And so we've just gotten really, really good. And I have an amazing team here in the office, and that's what we do every day.
Amazing story. Yeah. I mean, it's so nice and so great to see somebody that has a vision and like the desire to accomplish something that you started like so early.
Yeah.
And you built what you wanted, and which is, I mean, obviously, I'm sure it has been like ups and downs, right? But like you've come a far, like a really long way to build what you have, which is really
Yeah.
inspiring.
Yeah. I
Now,
appreciate that.
the good thing about real estate, which is something that I love, is like really the sky's the limit, and it's really your ability to solve problems, right? Like it's awesome. Like you can make anything work because it's
Yeah.
just a problem, and you have to like be creative on how you're going to solve it. But currently in
Absolutely.
this situation, what in this environment and like how the market is and everything, what are the challenges that you guys are currently seeing in your company that are keeping you from achieving what you want?
Well, I think internally inside of our company, we actually are a very well-oiled machine. My staff has been with me for a long time. Everybody knows their roles. Everybody has a vision of where they know the company is going. So we have a 2 to 5 year game plan. We break that down into monthly and quarterly goals for each person. Each person has a tactical game plan that they work their KPIs and know exactly what their job responsibilities are. So the challenge that we have specifically here in Texas is that 2 million people moved here during the pandemic. Well, that sucked up all the available inventory of anything infrastructure wise, because in a lot of these smaller towns, they had 4,000 people. Well, they grew to 30,000 people over a 5 year period. So there's no water, there's no sewer, the infrastructure is not there. So the creative thing becomes now is, how do you deliver the utilities to the site? How do you find a site that works? The other challenge that we have is land values went from, here in Texas, you used to be able to buy farmland between $10,000 and $20,000 an acre. Well, if you go outside of Austin, where Samsung built a chip plant, that dirt went from $20,000 in value to $150,000 in value. Problem is that you can't afford to pay that for it to put a house on top. So there's a dislocation in the market between what buyers think their land is worth and what we can afford to put on top of that property. Land is only worth what you can put on top of it. If
Right.
I can change the zoning on it to take raw farmland and convert it into a high-rise multifamily building, cows don't bring much cash flow. Growing hay in alfalfa doesn't bring much cash flow to the farmer. But if I can change the zoning and put a multifamily building on top of it, now I've tenfolded the value of that property. Problem is that you now run into zoning issues. Does it have a jurisdictional waterway on it? Here in Texas, we have a lot of oil and gas wells. Does it have easements on it with pipelines running through it? Do you have power lines on top of it? Do you run into a city that doesn't want growth in their market per se? They only want mansions built. They don't want first time home buyers moving in or what's quote unquote affordable housing. If you try to throw up a condo project or a multifamily project or a townhouse project, the neighbors come out with pitchforks and torches. And so we jokingly say that to be successful in this business is exactly what you said of solving problems, but you also have to enjoy getting punched in the face every day. And that and getting that just takes time of just getting beat up on one project after another and working it and working it and working it. And sometimes it can take you a year or two to solve the problems of that project.
Beautiful. Yes. Um, yeah, it's all about resilience and about being um
100%.
being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah,
Very cool.
exactly.
So for you, so you guys are like, I see, I mean, like, you've been growing and you have so much potential to continue growing in that market, right? What is keeping you, or what is your next objective? Are you looking for more clients to buy land for, or more investors? What are you looking for to continue on your growth trajectory?
Yeah, great question. So with each, we have a fund. It's called the Texas Triangle Land Fund. We've been consistently raising capital for that fund over the last 2 years. We do it in $5 million tranches, so the capital comes in, we deploy it. Most of that is from high net worth individuals, accredited investors, people that want to invest. Minimum investments $250,000. We have investors that have invested up to $2 million and everything in between. And that is something that will continue to grow. It's what we call an evergreen fund. We sell projects, capital comes back in, and we deploy it towards new projects. Sell those projects, capital comes back in, deploy it to new projects, give distributions in returns to our investors. So we see that that is really what the housing market is what the land fund is. We also have a desire to go into senior housing. So we right now you have this, they call it the silver tsunami, that
Mm,
is a large population, they call it aged in place, where they built their homes in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. Well, that was 40 or 50 years ago. And when they moved in, they were in their 40s. Well, now they're 75 and they love their neighborhood. They have their florist, they have their doctors nearby, they have their pharmacy, their friends and family are nearby, but they don't want to take care of that 3,000 square foot house on a large lot anymore because it's just them or their spouse has moved on or they're divorced. So a lot of these people need housing and they need affordable housing. And what they want to do is they don't want to go into a typical multifamily building or a retirement home. They want to go with people that they don't want to be around teenagers that are having parties. They want to be around people their age. Community is really important for them. So that's something where we're currently structuring a fund where we'll go out and raise capital more at the high net worth individual and family office level, but it also be more of an institutional fund where we can go out and deploy that money, acquire existing sites, develop out and build new sites, and then eventually we'll convert it into a REIT in about 5 years and take it public. So that's what our kind of long-term strategy is for that. And beyond that, as we do individual projects get entitled under our land fund and they come out of the land fund. And now we have a new cap stack that we put together. And then that requires a new equity. So we'll go out to institutions, we'll go out to family offices, private equity funds, and create a new cap stack and fund these individual projects. And so we'll have a consistent 20 to 25 projects at any given time, and we'll just keep deploying those. And then beyond that, we also have a desire to do debt and equity funds where we actually get into lending. A lot of the time, we have other developers and other people that come to us that don't necessarily have our pipeline, our bench, or our contacts and resources, and they ask us to help them out on the equity side, ask us to help them on the debt side. So eventually, we'll do that, but that's kind of the 2 year game plan down the road.
Awesome. That's what you get when you have like these 5 and 10 year plans, right?
Exactly.
Very cool. So currently you don't have any issues raising money.
Well, there's always issues raising money. I mean, like I said, you have to enjoy getting punched in the face. It is brain damage. And there's different timings. The market I think is a little spooked right now because there's some stories of certain people that over levered or bought into multifamily deals at the peak of the market, and they're getting retraded, and their banks are calling on their covenants. And so I think the market gets spooked from time to time. That's why I think it's important for investors to pick somebody that they can get to know, pick somebody that's got local knowledge and experience,
Hmm.
and then work with them to deploy capital in that area. I think anybody a few years ago could have thrown a dart at anywhere in the US and picked a piece of property and a home builder would have bought it or a multifamily developer would have bought it. And now you have to be smart. If you're going to go, like we stay out of Miami, they have I don't know the market. It's a completely anomaly. You have foreign investors coming in, spending $45 million on homes and $20 million on condos. My brain can't even comprehend that. We're more in first time buyer, first time move up, workforce housing, senior housing, stuff where the mass portion of the population is. And so those are more what I call bread and butter deals. They're
Hmm.
safer, they're more established. I would never want to put my money into a 40-story luxury high rise. That's the Aston Martin building in downtown Miami where the units sell for $20 million. Because how many buyers do you have at 20 million? Like it's a very, very short list. If you build a $20 million condo in Dallas, there's like 5 people here that can afford it. And so it just, once you move up the food chain and pricing, you really limit back what you can, who's in your marketplace and who you can sell that product to. So for us, finding those investors that understand that, educating them on that process, helping them understand what is a good investment. And a lot of our investors are doctors, lawyers, small business owners, people that I call practitioners that are really good at their craft. And they're smart enough to know that they don't know what they're doing and that they're better off placing capital with someone that has been doing this for 30 years and has lived through 3 or 4 downturns and financial crises and everything and can kind of navigate the market versus going out and trying to take on small multifamily buildings on their own. And suddenly they're, unclogging toilets and changing light bulbs and having tenants call them all the time. And they're doctors. They're not prepped for do that. So a lot of our investors, they know they need to be in real estate. They know they want to be in real estate, but they don't have the time to go out and do it on their own. And that's who I think our perfect avatar is for an investor.
Hmm. Yeah, those are smart investors and sophisticated investors that they know
Yeah,
what they
exactly.
focus on their craft and they just go and look for the best person to invest on, right?
To help them multiply and manage their capital. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Beautiful. Now, so how are you guys finding? So another thing, are you guys finding the properties that you want to buy, like the land to develop
Yeah.
easily?
Yeah. We have a
Okay.
team of acquisition people that actually go out and search the marketplace. With our particular fund here in Texas, we really identified when I started this last fund, I surveyed all the home builders I've done business with, and they said there's 2 places in the country that are doing great, Florida and Texas.
Hmm.
And literally, quote unquote, said everywhere else in the country sucks. So we're deploying all our capital in those 2 states. And so again,
Yeah.
I don't know Florida, but I know Texas like the back of my hand. I've lived here for 30 years. And so that was something we're like, okay, we know this market, but where do the builders want to be? Where are the jobs going? Where do we need to put multifamily projects? And that's in the 4 major metros really of Dallas Fort Worth, which is really 2 metros combined into one, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. And so that's the Texas Triangle. And so that area, that region is supposed to be bigger and then by 2030 than Chicago area as well as New York. It's supposed to be bigger than those markets because of the growth that we're having here. So we just focus on finding properties in that area. We did a search of data. We have database and technology and software that we do. We have a proprietary process where we go in and look for this stuff. And we surveyed 30,000 parcels of land that came up in our search that were in the target markets that the builders wanted to go into. And then we narrowed that down to 8,000 specific properties. And then that's what we go after. We go after those particular properties and look at those and try to get those under market. And everything under the sun, trying to reach the owners, contact them, look for them. We work with brokers, we search the MLS, we do mailers, we email, we call, we text, and we have people out there in the field that are actually knocking on doors, hunting for properties. And that's how we find the great opportunities.
Yeah. Looks like you have a pretty well-oiled machine in your marketing and your lead
We
acquisition.
do. We do.
Um, are you guys all constantly um, improving on that aspect? Is that like where you like a lot of your money you spend in like marketing and trying to get that or
Yeah, I mean, we spend a fair amount of money on it, tens of thousands of dollars a month, but the rewards are big. And so I
yeah.
think that that's something that's unique. People often say to us, why don't the home builders do this? Well, most people aren't going to spend $20,000 on mailers just to be able to get a transaction. And so with the fund, that gives us the capacity to do 10, 20, 30 transactions at any given time. And so that basically creates a diversified portfolio. So if you have 30 investments and you have four stocks that go through the roof, and then you have four dogs and the rest of them, trend with the market, then they
Mhm.
offset each other and you have a very well diversified portfolio. So it's the same theory behind what we do is that for every 10 properties that we put on our contract, we know three or four of them aren't going to work out. There's going to be issues as we go through the due diligence process, and we try
Mhm.
to suss those out as quick as we possibly can and kill those projects if they're not good. But what we get out of it is we get five or six really, really good projects. And just one of those projects offsets all the pursuit costs that you have for the other ones that didn't work out. And so you treat it like a machine. You constantly reinvent and reinvest and try to figure out better ways to search for properties, constantly working with brokers and landowners and developers and contacts that you make to be able to go out and hunt for more properties to be able to get the best possible product you can for the people that ultimately want to buy it.
So as you know, AI is changing a lot of industries and obviously
Yeah.
real estate is one of them as well. So how are you guys using AI currently to transform your business and how do you see yourself using it in the future?
Yeah, great question. I think for us, it makes every staff member that I have a little bit more professional and a little bit more efficient. And so, what used to be if we would get a contract in, we can run it through AI, and in 60 seconds, we know every change or every detail of that contract. Before, it would take 4 or 5 hours for a paralegal to run through that and build out that abstract. If there's contracts that are going to go out the door, we run them through AI because we know the people on the other side are going to run it through AI as well.
Mhm.
All of our vendors that we get and have contracts come in, invoicing that comes in, we run stuff through there to double check stuff. And so it allows my staff to put out a little bit more professional timelines, schedules, graphics, designs, working on our websites, all the collateral that goes into everything that we do. It just makes everybody a little bit more efficient because things that would take them a half an hour to summarize an email that they're sending to an engineer or an architect, they can use AI to help them do a polished email that takes 5 minutes. So it just allows us to do more work more efficiently and put out a better quality product.
Yeah. That's so great. Yeah, that's why I'm in love with AI, right? Like it just makes everything so more efficient and actually fun to work on because you
Yeah,
see the results
Claude is
right
my
away.
best friend. We talk all day long. He helps me with everything. It's fantastic.
Yeah, those are my Claude and Gemini. They know everything about me and my
Yeah,
business. Yeah.
yeah. I
Now
use
let me.
ChatGPT for everything personal, and I use Claude for everything professional.
Yeah, ChatGPT. It's like it's make you feel good
Yeah.
friend. So yeah,
Well, if I want to, like what's the best type of medicine to take for this, or what's the best supplement, or what does this do, or give me the hottest new restaurant in town, and
yeah,
stuff like stuff. Or if I don't remember, like who was the guy that won the World Series 10 years ago? What was that pitcher's name? It's good for stuff like that, right?
yes,
But it'll agree with you. It'll lie to you, which I found out. I don't need platitudes to tell me that I'm a nice person and, oh, you're so amazing. What a great idea. So I strip it down to like, tell me the brutal truth about stuff because I just want to know facts and figures. Where Claude is great in creating PowerPoints and
Mhm.
doing training programs and crafting documents and memos and kind of work product. I think I've been really impressed with what it has the ability to do.
Yes. It's a very powerful tool. And Gemini,
Yeah.
if you have like a lot of stuff in Google, that one
Yeah.
also has some great
Really.
connections.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't tried Gemini yet. We don't use Google or Gmail. We're all Outlook based here, but I've heard of Gemini, so it's probably great.
One of the most amazing features of Gemini is like you have a conversation or doing research, right? In Gemini, it
Yeah,
helps you do a lot of research. And then you can link it to Notebook LM, which is another application of Google,
yeah,
and it creates an audio, right? Like a podcast like conversation about the
yeah,
subject that you want to investigate. So it's like very easy to listen to. So, like, for example, you're doing research about a specific area or a specific investment. You have Gemini do the whole analysis and then please create a podcast talking about this.
interesting.
Really cool. Yeah, it's very powerful.
Wow,
Now, let
I'll have to
me,
try. Maybe we'll have to start playing with that.
you will be, you will be addicted to it once you start using it. So be careful. Now, let me ask you one last thing. Um, have you guys thought about tokenization for raising funds, like using the cryptocurrency market?
Yeah, I know that that was really big, the whole tokenization of blockchain. And for a few years, it was everything, there was this everything's going to turn digital, everything's going to turn blockchain. And we just really hasn't come up. Like it just hasn't been the opportunity. A lot of on the acquisition side, when we have properties that we're going after, a lot of times we're dealing with farmers and families that have owned the property for 100 years,
Hmm.
and they're literally ranchers. And so they're, in their 70s or 80s. They're not super sophisticated. They may not even know what blockchain is or what crypto is.
Right.
I could see that the industry would use that going on. Maybe you could fractionalize an office building or some really safe, underwritable asset that you could compartmentalize really easy. But there's so much of the industry is already anchored in fractionalizing sponsorships or tenant in common transactions or putting things into a REIT. And so there's already a source for that
Hmm.
and a mechanism to do that. And so you have to shift everybody away from what they've been doing for literally decades and get them to go over to this new technology. I've heard cases of people trying to do it. It just doesn't come up. It, fascinates me. And I've, played with crypto a little bit. Should have got into Bitcoin a long time ago, I guess.
Yes.
But it's also, it's it's not a fiat currency to where you're getting back. I mean, they have some that are now that are backed by the US government or stuff like that. So a lot of it is just speculative coins that can ramp up and ramp down. And
Oh
so
yeah.
if you could figure out a way to tie hard tangible assets and raise capital that way through some type of crypto coin where people will buy it, I could see it working. It just, again, with what we do, we're taking the land down, developing it, and then immediately selling it. And so
Hmm.
and we already have the buyer in mind, which is a publicly traded home builder or a large multifamily group or a REIT. We already know who we're going to exit to when we first take the property down. So it's not like we've got to come up with a creative way to monetize it.
Yes. No. So yeah, like you already have your well-oiled machine that is working. Now it's just like for up and coming developers, right? It's just an
Yeah,
easy way to raise capital because you go straight to the retail, and it's instead of like I mean it's not a cryptocurrency. It's really just like the um, the asset of this token is
yeah,
the project that you're working on. So it's like
yeah,
instead of like going for LPs that are giving you each, I don't know, 300,000, you can have a cryptocurrency that is like people can actually buy for $10 or a
yeah.
hundred because there are tokens. So it's interesting, right? Like that, I see that moving, and as any technology, it just takes a while for it to take form. But
Yeah.
I see it taking form now, and not only for real estate, but it's also even companies are thinking about, hey, we can tokenize our stocks and like access to way more people globally, right? Not
Yeah.
just like the US market, but like
Yeah, because
global.
anybody can buy if you've got a wallet, you can buy it from any place all over the planet.
Eh,
So it's a fascinating idea, and I'm sure at some point in time, someone will figure out the best case method to do it and get it done.
yeah, I'm gonna be thinking about it and see if I
Yeah.
can work on it, and I'll let you know.
Well, if you figure it out, let me know. We'll work on it together.
Awesome. And then one, I know I said last time, but like, have you guys thought about having a Bitcoin reserve for your company or your projects? Um, so for example, me, like,
Like I said, I really have not delved into Bitcoin that much to
okay,
be able to think about it from that standpoint. Um, always open to learning new things and trying to figure out how we can incorporate stuff like that.
Mhm.
Because I know that is kind of the cutting edge of where things are going. Open to learning about it, but we really haven't researched that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, happy to have conversations about it with you.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's
I'd
another
love to
area
learn
that
more
I'm
about it.
passionate about.
Yeah.
Cool. So now this is really the last question. If you think about a song, a theme song for yourself or your company, what do you think that would be? And I know it's not an easy question or answer to come up with so quickly, but what do you think?
Um, well, the first one that went through my mind is the Rocky one of Eye of the Tiger, but I don't know if that quite
Yeah.
fits what we do here. So I've never had anybody ask me anything about a theme song, but I guess if I had to pick one just quickly off the top of my head, I guess that would be it. You know, it's with what we do, it's not overly complicated. Once you figure out the process, it's just extremely difficult. You're taking an unreasonable seller and an unreasonable buyer and putting them to get and putting the deal together in a short compressed timeline, and then you have to rely upon architects and engineers who are basically going to try to do some type of volume to get the lowest person on the totem pole in their office to do the work, so there's mistakes in it. And then you're going to go out to subcontractors, which oftentimes people aren't graduating from Harvard and MIT and going into construction, and so you don't get the most sophisticated people, and you've got, a lot of them are former alcoholics and drug addicts, and you don't get the highest caliber sometime of contractors. And you take that project and try to get financing from a bank that's overly paranoid and unrealistic, and you get it pushed through a
Mhm.
city, which is a big bureaucratic process where you have to deal with voters and everything. And we do all that with all those people, and we expect it to go well. And so you have to be optimistically pessimistic with what you do. You have to have an optimistic personality that we can achieve this and get it done. But you also have to look down the street and around the corner, anticipate everything that can go wrong. And that is a skill that you only learn through hard work and failing and figuring things out. And so it's just something that you have to constantly work out to try to improve yourself in that particular area.
I think that's a perfect song for it. Yes, you picked the right one, in my opinion. Well, Scott, this
Yeah.
was
So it's a
amazing.
fight every day. That's what we have. That's how we look at it. We got to fight every day.
Yes. Scott, this was so interesting and so insightful. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I
How
appreciate you
can
having me on. It
people
was fun. Like I said, I love talking about real estate and finance. I could talk about it all day long. So I appreciate you reaching out and hopping on the podcast with me.
Yes. So I will have the link to your LinkedIn and your company in the show notes, but
Great.
anything else you want to provide for the audience if they want to work with you?
No, we're all over social media. So if anybody wants to figure out what we do and how we do it and wants to partner with us, they can reach out to us. Appreciate you putting the links on there. Look forward to talking to everybody.
Cool. Thank you, Scott.
All right. Take care. Thank you.